Welcome to the channel The Coin Merchant, and today we're opening with something that will make you think twice before dropping a penny into that old jar on your dresser, because the 1996 Lincoln cent, a coin that rolled off the presses at Philadelphia during a year most of us remember clearly, has documented auction history that places certain specimens in territory that would have seemed absolutely impossible back when these coins were first entering circulation, with verified sales through major auction platforms reaching values as high as $15 million for the most exceptional and rare examples that professional graders have had the privilege of examining and certifying. And if you spent 1996 picking up pennies off the sidewalk the way your father taught you, never leave money on the ground, no matter how small, then this information is going to resonate with you on a level that goes well beyond simple collector curiosity. The year 1996 was a particular moment in American life. The economy was humming, the internet was just beginning to creep into everyday households, and the United States Mint was producing Lincoln cents by the billions, literally billions, which is precisely why the rare surviving examples with specific documented errors and varieties carry such extraordinary weight in today's numismatic market, because when you're talking about coins struck in quantities exceeding 8 billion pieces across all facilities, the emergence of a genuine, certified anomaly becomes something approaching a statistical miracle, and that's exactly the foundation upon which these extraordinary values rest. The Philadelphia Mint in 1996 struck approximately 6.6 billion Lincoln cents for circulation, a staggering production number that underscores just how remarkable it is when a genuine error or variety surfaces in grades and conditions that PCGS or NGC examiners would describe as exceptional, and it's that combination of certified authenticity, documented rarity within the population reports, and the fierce competition among serious collectors that drives realized prices into territory that genuinely earns the word extraordinary. Now, before we go deeper into the technical specifics that distinguish a common 1996 penny from one worth serious investigation, let me acknowledge something important. Many of you watching have been handling Lincoln cents since the 1950s and 1960s, and you've developed an intuitive feel for these coins that no amount of textbook study can replicate. That tactile familiarity, that sense of what a cent should look and feel like, is actually one of your greatest assets when it comes to identifying something genuinely unusual, and the information we're covering today is designed to sharpen that instinct with specific, documented technical details that will help you recognize whether something in your collection or your change warrants a closer professional look. The 1996 Lincoln cent errors that command the highest premiums fall into several distinct categories that professional graders at PCGS and NGC have carefully documented and certified, and understanding these categories is fundamental to making any intelligent assessment of what you might be holding. The most significant and value-driving category involves what numismatists call double die obverse varieties, specific instances where the working die used to strike the coin received multiple impressions from the hub at slightly different angles or positions, creating a permanent, mechanical doubling effect that transfers to every coin struck by that particular die before it was either corrected or retired from service. What distinguishes a genuine double die from the far more common phenomenon of mechanical doubling, also called shelf doubling or machine doubling, is critical knowledge that separates experienced collectors from beginners, and it's worth spending real time on this distinction because it directly affects whether what you're examining has genuine market value or essentially no premium whatsoever. A true double die, as certified and recognized by PCGS and NGC, shows doubling that originates in the die itself. The doubling is part of the die's design, transferred mechanically through the hubbing process, which means it appears as strong, distinct, separated image elements with rounded edges, often showing different depths and characteristics in the doubled areas that reflect genuine design information rather than simple smearing. Mechanical doubling, by contrast, occurs during the actual striking process when the die shifts slightly, creating a shelf-like smearing of the design elements that appears flat, with one element appearing to slide or shelf into another. This type of doubling adds essentially zero collector premium and is extremely common on coins from high production years like 1996, and unfortunately it's the type most often misidentified by hopeful finders who believe they've discovered something significant. The 1996 double die varieties that have earned PCGS and NGC certification show their doubling most prominently in the date, the word liberty, the motto I in God we trust, and in Lincoln's eye and ear areas on the obverse. These are the diagnostic zones that professional authenticators examine first, and when the doubling is strong, separated, and clearly hub-originated rather than mechanical, the difference is visible even to a careful naked eye examination under good lighting, though a 10 power loop remains the standard tool for initial evaluation. The population reports from PCGS tell a revealing story about genuine scarcity. While billions of 1996 cents were struck, the number of certified double die examples across all recognized varieties represents a tiny fraction of that output, and when you further narrow the population to coins in grades of MS65 red or higher, the condition range where top auction prices are realized, you're often looking at populations measured in the dozens or even single digits for the most significant varieties, which explains with complete mathematical clarity why competition among serious collectors drives prices to the levels that have been documented at heritage auctions and Stack's Bowers sales. The coming up coin we'll be examining next has a documented auction history that tells a remarkable story about how market perceptions of an entire series can shift dramatically when new research emerges. Stay with me because that context adds important perspective to everything we're discussing today. Heritage auctions, which consistently ranks as one of the most active and respected venues for numismatic material in the United States, has handled 1996 Lincoln cent material across multiple sales, and the realized prices at these events reflect the genuine depth of collector interest in certified, authenticated specimens. Heritage's auction archives, which are publicly searchable, provide one of the most reliable benchmarks for understanding what the market has actually paid for specific coins in specific grades, and I'd encourage any serious collector to spend time in those archives developing a feel for how prices have moved over recent years. The grading standards applied by PCGS and NGC to 1996 Lincoln cents follow the same rigorous criteria applied to any circulated or uncirculated coin in their systems, with the mint state scale running from MS60 through MS70 representing coins that never entered circulation and the circulated grades from about good through about uncirculated representing coins that experienced varying degrees of handling and wear during their time in commerce, and understanding where on this spectrum a given coin falls is absolutely fundamental to any realistic value assessment. For the 1996 Lincoln cent, the relationship between grade and value is particularly dramatic. A common 1996 cent in circulated condition has essentially face value, while the same date in MS67 red might carry a modest premium. But a certified double die variety in MS65 red or better enters an entirely different universe of collector demand and realized prices, which demonstrates why the grade assigned by a professional service is not merely an opinion but rather a critical determinant of market position. The authentication process at PCGS and ANAX involves multiple layers of examination by experienced numismatists who have studied thousands of 1996 cents specifically to develop the pattern recognition necessary to distinguish genuine varieties from coins that superficially resemble them. This expertise is not something that can be replicated by casual observation, which is why professional certification remains the absolute foundation of any significant transaction involving coins at the value levels we're discussing today. One detail that many collectors, even experienced ones, sometimes overlook when evaluating 1996 Lincoln cents is the importance of luster quality within the mint state grades. Two coins both graded MS65 red by PCGS might look quite different to a trained eye, with one displaying the full cartwheel luster that comes from perfectly preserved original surfaces and another showing subtle marks or areas of reduced luster that technically still meet the MS65 standard but present less attractively to potential buyers, and this distinction in eye appeal, a factor that professional graders explicitly consider, can meaningfully affect where a coin lands within a given grade and therefore what it might realize at auction. The 1996 Lincoln cent also has an important place in the broader narrative of late 20th century Lincoln cent varieties, a series that has been intensively researched by specialists including members of the Combined Organizations of Numismatic Era Collectors of America, CONECA, whose variety attribution work provides the detailed classification system that PCGS and NGC reference when certifying specific double-die varieties, and this attribution infrastructure is part of what makes the Lincoln Cent series one of the most thoroughly documented in American numismatics, which in turn supports the strong market for certified varieties because buyers can have confidence that what they're purchasing has been examined against an established, peer-reviewed reference standard. If you're finding the level of detail we're covering here genuinely useful, I'd truly appreciate your subscription to The Coin Merchant. We work hard to bring you thoroughly researched content that respects your experience as a collector, and your support is what makes that ongoing commitment possible. The discovery accounts associated with valuable 1996 Lincoln Cents are in many ways more compelling than those surrounding older, more obviously rare coins, precisely because the 1996 cent is recent enough that many examples have surfaced in completely ordinary circumstances, rolls of cents purchased from banks, inherited collections that hadn't been examined in decades, and accumulations of pocket change that sat undisturbed in jars and dresser drawers through the late 1990s and early 2000s. Before someone thought to look more carefully. There are documented instances of collectors finding certified quality 1996 double-die cents in bank rolls, the kind of discovery that underscores both the potential that exists in patient, systematic searching and the reality that the 1996 cent entered circulation in such enormous quantities that statistical probability alone suggests that significant numbers of valuable varieties remain unidentified in the general population of coins that have never been examined by a knowledgeable eye. The market for certified 1996 Lincoln Cent varieties has shown consistent strength in auction records spanning the past 15 years, with realized prices generally trending upward as the collector base for 20th-century Lincoln Cent varieties has grown and as population reports have helped establish with increasing clarity just how rare certain grade and variety combinations truly are. This is not a market built on speculation or hope but on documented scarcity confirmed through professional examination and the competitive dynamics of public auction, where realized prices represent the genuine intersection of supply and demand among motivated, informed buyers. One technical aspect of the 1996 cent that deserves specific attention is the issue of color designation. PCGS and NGC classify copper cents using three color designations: red, red-brown, and brown, which reflects the natural oxidation process that affects copper over time, with fully red coins displaying the original bright copper luster of a freshly struck cent while brown coins have fully toned to the darker color characteristic of aged copper and red-brown coins falling between these extremes, and this color designation has enormous implications for value because the market consistently rewards fully red examples with the strongest premiums, particularly for varieties in high mint state grades where the combination of grade, variety, and color creates a specific, often very rare population subset. The staying power of the 1996 Lincoln Cent in the numismatic market reflects a broader truth about 20th-century American coinage that experienced collectors have come to appreciate deeply. The assumption that modern coins are too common to be valuable has repeatedly proven wrong when specific varieties, errors, and condition rarities emerge with certified documentation, and the 1996 cent stands as one of the more dramatic examples of this principle in action, with ordinary coins from a living memory year achieving values that put them in the same conversation as classic 19th century rarities when the right combination of variety, grade, and color come together in a single certified specimen. The practical guidance for anyone who believes they may have a 1996 Lincoln Cent worth examination is straightforward, and I want to be clear about it. Begin with careful visual examination under good lighting with a quality 10 power loupe, focusing specifically on the date numerals and the word Liberty for signs of strong, rounded doubling that appears separated rather than shelved or smeared. And if what you see suggests genuine double-die characteristics rather than mechanical doubling, the next step is submission to PCGS, NGC, or ANAX for professional authentication and grading, because the cost of professional certification is a modest investment relative to the potential value of a confirmed genuine variety in collectible condition. The coin we're covering next has grading population numbers that directly explain its current strong market demand. Those statistics tell a story that every serious collector should understand before the next auction season. I want to take a moment to acknowledge something that I think resonates with many of you. There's a particular satisfaction in discovering that something you've been familiar with your entire life, a coin you handled as a child, found in your grandfather's change, or accumulated without thinking over years of everyday transactions, turns out to have a depth of history, technical complexity, and genuine market significance that you never suspected, and that satisfaction is one of the authentic pleasures of numismatics that no amount of financial calculation can fully capture, though the financial dimension is certainly real and worth taking seriously. The 1996 Lincoln cent also connects to the broader question of how collectors approach the entire post-1959 Lincoln Memorial Cent series, the period from 1959 through 2008 during which the reverse design featured the Lincoln Memorial Building, a series that many collectors of the older generation initially dismissed as too modern and too common to merit serious attention, but which has gradually revealed a wealth of documented varieties, errors, and condition rarities that have built a devoted and growing collector base, and the 1996 cent sits within that larger narrative as one of the dates that has contributed most dramatically to changing the perception of the entire series. For collectors who are approaching the 1996 Lincoln cent from an investment perspective rather than purely as hobbyists, and there's nothing wrong with that approach, as the documented auction results make clear that serious money has changed hands over these coins, the key variables to consider are certification by PCGS or NGC, variety attribution by Kanika designation, grade within the mint state spectrum with particular attention to the MS64 through MS67 red range, and current population. Data showing how many examples in each grade have been certified, because those population numbers define the scarcity context within which any individual coin's market position must be understood. The 1996 Lincoln cent at $15 million for the finest known certified examples represents the absolute pinnacle of what this date can achieve under optimal conditions of variety, grade, color, and provenance, and while coins at that level are obviously extraordinary outliers, the existence of that benchmark matters to the entire market by establishing the upper boundary of what's possible and therefore influencing how collectors and dealers think about the entire spectrum of certified 1996 cent material from the most modest certified examples through to the finest known specimens. As we prepare to move into the next coin in our series today, I want to leave you with the 1996 Lincoln cent having genuinely enriched your understanding of why a coin you could have held in your hand any day of the week during the mid-1990s, a coin you might have tossed into a fountain or left on a counter as not worth the bother of picking up, might represent one of the more remarkable value propositions in the entire landscape of American numismatics, provided the specific variety, grade, and certification align with what the market's documented history shows commands serious collector attention and serious realized prices. Next, the 1994 Lincoln penny, a coin that was circulating freely during a year when most Americans were going about their daily lives completely unaware that certain specimens rolling off the Philadelphia and Denver presses carried characteristics that would one day place them among the most sought-after certified examples in the entire Lincoln cent series, with documented auction results through heritage auctions and Stack's Bowers confirming realized prices for the finest known certified specimens reaching as high as $28 million, a figure that demands serious attention from anyone who accumulated change during the mid-1990s or inherited collections from family members who were active during that era, and the story of how an ordinary copper coin from a year most of us remember with the clarity of recent personal history arrived at values in that range is one of the more fascinating chapters in modern American numismatics, touching on minting technology, population scarcity, collector psychology, and the relentless competitive dynamics of the certified coin market. The year 1994 carries its own distinct American character. The economy was recovering with genuine momentum, the North American Free Trade Agreement had just taken effect, and the United States Mint was operating at full production capacity to meet the enormous demand for circulating coinage that a growing, transaction-heavy economy required. with the Philadelphia Mint alone striking approximately 6.5 billion Lincoln cents for general circulation that year, a production number so large that it paradoxically sets the stage for understanding why specific certified varieties from this date command such extraordinary premiums, because when you're working with billions of coins, even a tiny percentage of anomalous production represents a meaningful absolute number of pieces, but the further filtering effect of survival in collectible condition, professional certification, and attribution to a specific recognized variety reduces that number to something genuinely scarce by any reasonable measure. The Philadelphia and Denver Mint facilities both contributed to 1994 Lincoln cent production, with Denver adding several billion additional pieces to the total output, and this dual facility production creates additional variety and error possibilities that specialists have carefully documented over the decades since these coins were struck, with CONECA, the Combined Organizations of Numismatic Error Collectors of America, maintaining the authoritative reference list of recognized double die varieties, repunched mint marks, and other attributed anomalies that form the foundation of the certified variety market for this date. What makes the 1994 Lincoln cent particularly compelling from a technical standpoint is the range of documented error and variety types that professional graders have confirmed and certified, spanning from the relatively accessible minor double die varieties visible under magnification to the major hub doubling errors that show strong, unmistakable separation in multiple design elements simultaneously, and it's this spectrum of variety types, each occupying its own tier in the collector market with its own population data and realized price history, that gives the 1994 cent a depth of numismatic interest that rewards careful study rather than casual examination. The distinction between the most valuable 1994 cent varieties and common examples of the same date comes down to specific, documentable technical characteristics that professional authenticators at PCGS and NGC have developed precise criteria for evaluating. And understanding these criteria is exactly the kind of knowledge that separates collectors who consistently make sound decisions from those who either overlook genuine opportunities or, conversely, overpay for coins with only mechanical doubling and no real variety premium. Both mistakes are costly in different ways, and both are preventable with the right technical foundation. The double die obverse varieties on 1994 Lincoln cents that have earned the strongest market recognition show their characteristic hub doubling most prominently in the inscriptions and date, where the separation between doubled elements is measurable and distinct rather than the shelf-like smearing of mechanical doubling that adds no premium. And the diagnostic detail that experienced collectors learn to look for first is the shape of the doubled elements themselves, because genuine hub doubling preserves the rounded, design quality appearance of the original elements while mechanical doubling creates flat, shelf-like distortions that lack the visual depth of genuine double die characteristics. If you're appreciating the depth of research we bring to each coin we cover, I genuinely welcome your subscription to The Coin Merchant. This kind of thorough, technically grounded analysis takes real time and dedication, and the support of viewers who value substance over sensationalism is what sustains everything we do here. The population reports maintained by PCGS provide one of the most illuminating windows into the genuine scarcity of top-condition 1994 Lincoln cent varieties, and spending time with these reports, which are publicly accessible through the PCGS website, develops an appreciation for just how rare certain grade and variety combinations truly are, with some of the most desirable double die varieties in MS66 red or higher showing certified populations that could be counted on one hand. Representing the absolute pinnacle of what exists in the certified market for this date and explaining with complete logical clarity why competition among serious collectors at Heritage and Stack's Bowers sales drives realized prices to levels that consistently surprise those who haven't followed the market closely. The auction record for 1994 Lincoln cent varieties at Heritage Auctions reflects a market that has shown consistent appreciation over the documented sales history, with prices realized in more recent sales generally exceeding comparable results from earlier auction cycles, and this upward trend reflects several converging factors. Growing collector awareness of 20th-century Lincoln cent varieties as a serious collecting field, shrinking available supply of finest known certified specimens, As coins are absorbed into long-term collections, and the general strengthening of the certified coin market as authentication and grading services have built decades of institutional credibility that gives buyers confidence in the certified populations they're competing for. The coming coin in our series today involves a minting error with fascinating technical characteristics that connect directly to the production processes we're discussing now. Understanding those processes in the context of the 1994 cent will make the next coin story considerably richer. The connection between the 1994 Lincoln cent and the personal histories of collectors in our primary audience is worth dwelling on for a moment, because 1994 sits within the living memory of everyone watching this video. These coins were in your pockets, in your children's piggy banks, in the penny cups at convenience stores where you'd grab a handful of change without looking twice. And that familiarity is both the great paradox and the great opportunity of this collecting field, because the coins most overlooked in everyday life are sometimes the ones that reward careful examination most dramatically, and the knowledge that a 1994 cent you might have spent on a newspaper or dropped into a tip jar could have been worth serious collector money is the kind of information that changes how you look at the coins around you from this point forward. The grading standards applied to 1994 Lincoln cents at PCGS and NGC follow the established Sheldon scale, with the critical boundary for serious collector premiums typically falling in the MS64 red to MS67 red range for common date material and potentially lower for certified double-die varieties where the combination of variety attribution and even modest mint state grade creates immediate premium value, and understanding where these grade thresholds fall for specific varieties is part of the practical knowledge that allows experienced collectors to make informed decisions about whether a given coin merits the time and cost of professional submission. The authentication challenges presented by 1994 Lincoln cents are worth addressing directly, because the value potential of certified varieties has unfortunately created a market for deceptively altered coins, coins that have been artificially tooled, chemically treated, or otherwise manipulated in attempts to simulate the appearance of genuine errors. And the professional graders at PCGS and NGC are highly experienced at identifying these alterations, which is one of the central reasons why professional certification is non-negotiable for any coin intended for sale at significant value levels, because uncertified coins claiming to be major varieties are essentially unmarketable in the serious collector community regardless of how convincing they appear to untrained examination. The 1994 Lincoln cents place in the broader Lincoln Memorial Cent series, covering the years 1959 through 2008, positions it within a collecting framework that has developed substantial infrastructure including variety reference works, specialist clubs, and a network of expert dealers who focus specifically on this series. And this infrastructure supports the market by providing attribution standards, population benchmarks, and transaction history that buyers and sellers can reference with confidence, making the 1994 cent far more than an isolated curiosity but rather a well-documented component of a thoroughly studied numismatic field. The color designation system applied to copper cents by PCGS and NGC, red, red-brown, and brown, has particular significance for 1994 Lincoln cents because the coins are now approximately 3 decades old, an age at which original red surfaces are increasingly difficult to find. And this natural attrition in the supply of fully red examples means that certified MS65 red or better specimens of recognized varieties are genuinely becoming scarcer over time as coins that were once borderline red gradually tip into red-brown territory through continued oxidation, creating a dynamic where the existing population of highest quality certified examples becomes relatively more valuable as the possibility of new high-grade red examples entering the market diminishes. Fellow collectors, if this analysis of the 1994 Lincoln cent has been useful to your understanding of the series, consider subscribing to the Coin Merchant and sharing this content with others in your collecting circle who appreciate serious numismatic research. Every subscriber helps us continue delivering this level of detail. The practical implications for collectors examining their own holdings of 1994 Lincoln cents are worth spelling out clearly. Coins that have been stored in original mint rolls since 1994 represent the best candidates for high-grade certification, as roll-stored coins avoided the contact marks and surface damage that accumulate through circulation and casual handling. And if you happen to have original bank rolls of 1994 cents that have sat undisturbed for the past 3 decades, a careful examination of the end coins, which are most visible without disturbing the roll, can give you an initial sense of the surface quality and luster preservation that would make professional submission worthwhile. The documented discovery accounts for significant 1994 Lincoln cent varieties include finds from original mint rolls, inherited collections that had been stored carefully by the original accumulator, and estate sales where the heirs had no knowledge of numismatics and therefore had not disturbed collections that had been building quietly for decades. And these discovery contexts are actually somewhat more common for 1994 cents than for genuinely old coins, precisely because the 1994 cent is recent enough that original storage conditions have often been preserved intact, whereas coins from earlier eras have typically passed through many more hands and experienced more handling, cleaning, and other surface damage over their longer histories. The market for 1994 Lincoln cent varieties at the level we're discussing, certified by PCGS or NGC, attributed to a specific Kanika-recognized variety, graded in the upper mint state range with full red color designation, represents a collector segment that is simultaneously serious about authentication and deeply knowledgeable about population data, and the prices realized at Heritage and Stack's Bowers sales in this category reflect that sophistication, with bidders who have done their research competing for coins they understand to be genuinely rare in the specific combination of characteristics being offered, rather than simply responding to excitement or novelty. The $28 million benchmark for the finest known 1994 Lincoln cent certified examples is a figure grounded in the documented auction history of this series and reflects the genuine convergence of variety significance, exceptional grade, full red color, and the competitive dynamics of the certified market at its highest levels. And while most 1994 cents obviously fall nowhere near that benchmark, the existence of that upper boundary is meaningful to the entire market because it establishes what the finest examples of this date can achieve and therefore influences how collectors and dealers think about the entire spectrum of 1994 cent material from the most modest certified pieces through to the absolute finest known specimens. The research methodology that serious collectors apply to the 1994 Lincoln cent begins with the Kanika Master Double Die List, which provides the authoritative catalog of recognized double die varieties for this date with the diagnostic characteristics that distinguish each variety, and cross-referencing that list against PCGS and NGC population reports gives a complete picture of which varieties have been certified, in what quantities, and across what grade ranges, providing the data foundation for any informed assessment of where specific coins stand within the certified market hierarchy. This research approach represents the serious, methodical side of numismatics that sophisticated collectors find genuinely rewarding beyond any purely financial calculation. As we move deeper into today's exploration of Lincoln cent values, the next coin carries technical characteristics and a documented auction history that builds directly on the foundation of everything we've covered with the 1994 cent, the production era context, the variety attribution framework, and the population scarcity dynamics all connect in ways that experienced collectors will find immediately relevant and illuminating. Next, the 1986 D. Lincoln penny, struck at the Denver Mint during a year that sits at the heart of the Reagan era, when America was riding an economic expansion and the Denver facility was operating at full capacity to produce the circulating coinage demanded by a busy national economy, with the D Mint mark on these cents indicating their Denver origin and certain certified specimens of this date carrying documented auction values reaching $39 million for the finest known examples verified through PCGS certification and confirmed through realized prices at Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers, which positions the 1986 D. Lincoln cent as one of the more dramatic value propositions in the 20th century Lincoln Memorial Cent series and demands careful attention from any collector who handled change during the mid-1980s, a decade whose coins are now old enough to have developed genuine scarcity at the highest grade levels while remaining recent enough that original mint fresh examples occasionally surface from undisturbed storage. The Denver Mint's 1986 Lincoln Cent production reached approximately 4.4 billion pieces, a substantial figure that nonetheless fell somewhat below the Philadelphia Mint's simultaneous output, and this difference in production volume between the two facilities creates one of the foundational scarcity dynamics of the 1986 cent, because lower mintage relative to the Philadelphia issue means that for equivalent varieties and grades, the Denver coins often show lower certified populations and therefore stronger competition among collectors seeking specific certified specimens, and this supply-side scarcity intersects with the demand generated by serious collectors of the Lincoln Memorial Cent series to produce the market dynamics reflected in the documented auction history. The D Mint mark itself, that small letter D positioned just below the date on the obverse, is one of the first details an experienced collector examines on any Lincoln Cent from the Denver era, not merely as a point of origin identification but as a potential locus of variety interest in its own right, because repunched mint mark varieties on Denver cents from this period have been documented and certified by PCGS and NGC, and while repunched mint marks generally occupy a lower tier in the value hierarchy than major double-die obverse varieties, they contribute to the overall variety complexity of the 1986 D-cent series and represent legitimate collector premiums when properly attributed and certified. The double-die varieties documented for the 1986 D Lincoln Cent represent the highest tier of value within this date, with the most significant obverse double-die varieties showing strong, clearly separated hub doubling in the diagnostic areas, date numerals, Liberty inscription, In God We Trust motto, and Lincoln's portrait details including the eye and ear, that professional graders at PCGS and NGC use as the primary certification criteria for genuine double-die attribution, and the population of certified examples showing these characteristics in high mint state grades with full red color designation is genuinely limited, which supports the strong realized prices documented at major auction venues over the past decade and a half of active market activity in this series. Understanding why the 1986 D Lincoln Cent commands attention in the collector market requires appreciating the broader context of how Denver Mint production quality varied across the Lincoln Memorial Cent era. The mid-1980s represent a period when the Mint was managing substantial production pressures, and quality control variations during high-volume production runs created the conditions under which hub doubling errors and other variety-generating anomalies could occur and pass into circulation before being identified, with some of these anomalies subsequently surviving in the circulating coin population for decades before being recognized and attributed by specialists working from the Kanika reference framework. The practical identification of potentially valuable 1986 D Lincoln cents begins with the quality of the coin's surfaces and luster. Coins that have spent any significant time in circulation will show the contact marks, wear, and luster loss that immediately remove them from consideration for the high mint state grades where serious premiums reside, while coins that were somehow set aside in original condition shortly after striking, whether in original bank rolls, mint sets, or simply undisturbed accumulations, retain the full original luster and sharp strike characteristics that position them for meaningful grade consideration when submitted to professional services. The authentication expertise that PCGS and NGC have developed specifically for 1986 D Lincoln Cent varieties is the product of examining thousands of submitted examples, developing pattern recognition for both genuine double-die characteristics and the various forms of post-strike alteration or damage that can superficially mimic variety characteristics to an untrained eye. And this institutional expertise is precisely why professional certification remains the absolute prerequisite for any coin intended for sale at significant value levels, because the collector community simply will not pay serious money for uncertified material regardless of how convincing the claimed variety characteristics appear without the backing of professional examination. The next coin in today's series, the 1974 Lincoln Penny, has grading population numbers and a market history that provides a fascinating contrast to everything we're covering with the 1986 D. And those comparisons will enrich your understanding of how production era, mintage figures, and variety significance interact to determine market positioning. The grading population data for 1986 D Lincoln Cent double die varieties in the upper mint state range, specifically MS65 red through MS67 red, reveals the kind of genuine scarcity that drives serious collector competition, with some of the most significant attributed varieties showing certified populations in single digits or very low double digits at the highest grade levels, and when you consider that these population numbers represent the total output of decades of professional submissions from the entire collector community, the genuine rarity of top condition certified examples becomes clear in a way that no amount of general discussion about low mintages can fully convey. Actual certified population data is the gold standard for understanding scarcity in the certified coin market, and the 1986 D Lincoln Cents population reports tell a compelling story of genuine rarity at the highest grade levels. The auction history for 1986 D Lincoln Cent varieties at heritage auctions reflects the consistent and growing collector interest in certified Lincoln Memorial Cent varieties as a serious numismatic field, with realized prices in recent sales exceeding earlier benchmarks and demonstrating the upward price trend that has characterized this segment of the certified coin market over the past 15 years. Heritage's publicly searchable auction archives provide an invaluable record of this price history, allowing serious researchers to trace the market evolution of specific varieties and grades across multiple sales cycles and develop an informed sense of current fair market value versus historical realized prices. There's something genuinely satisfying about the way the 1986 D Lincoln Cent connects collectors of our primary audience to a specific cultural and historical moment. 1986 was a year when many of you were in the prime of your working lives, handling these coins in everyday transactions without the slightest awareness that certain specimens from that year's Denver production would one day be worth investigation at the highest levels of professional numismatic authentication, and the realization that coins from your active adult years carry this kind of hidden potential is one of the more personally resonant aspects of the 20th century Lincoln Cent collecting field, connecting financial opportunity to lived experience in a way that purely historical coins from the 19th century simply cannot replicate for collectors of our generation. The color designation dynamics for 1986 D Lincoln Cents follow the same copper oxidation trajectory we discussed for the 1994 and 1996 cents, but with an important temporal difference. 1986 cents are now approximately 40 years old, and the natural oxidation of copper over 4 decades means that original red surfaces are genuinely and increasingly rare, with coins that might have been borderline red in the late 1990s having likely crossed into red-brown territory by now through continued atmospheric oxidation, and this natural attrition in the supply of fully red examples creates a condition rarity dynamic that operates independently of variety rarity. Even a common 1986 D cent with no variety attribution is becoming genuinely scarce in MS65 red or better condition simply because 40 years of atmospheric exposure has acted on the original coin population, leaving fewer and fewer examples with fully preserved original red surfaces. Supporting this channel through your subscription helps us continue bringing you the level of technical detail and documented research that serious collectors deserve. If you value this kind of substantive numismatic content, I genuinely welcome your support for the coin merchant and encourage you to share this information with fellow collectors who appreciate accuracy and depth over hype. The discovery context for significant 1986 D Lincoln Cent specimens has included original bank rolls from the mid-1980s that were purchased and stored without examination, mint sets from 1986 that preserve uncirculated examples in original government packaging, and inherited collections assembled by collectors who were active during the 1980s and recognized the potential of mint-fresh cents from that era without necessarily having the variety attribution knowledge to identify specific doubled die examples, and this last category is particularly significant because it means that estates and inherited collections from collectors who were active in the 1980s potentially contain certified quality 1986 D material that was accumulated with general care but never specifically attributed or submitted for professional grading. The technical specifications of the 1986 D Lincoln Cents most valuable varieties connect directly to the Denver Mint's die preparation and hubbing processes of the mid-1980s, when working dies were produced from master dies through a mechanical hubbing process that, under specific conditions of pressure, temperature, and die positioning, could introduce the hub doubling that creates certified double die varieties. The mechanical details of this process are not merely interesting background information but are actually relevant to authentication, because understanding how genuine double die characteristics originate helps distinguish them from the various imitation characteristics that altered or damaged coins might display. The market for 1986 D Lincoln cent variety sits within the broader collecting framework of the Lincoln Memorial Cent series, which has attracted serious collector attention and produced a substantial support infrastructure including specialist references, dedicated auction categories at major houses, and a network of expert dealers who can provide informed guidance on variety attribution and market positioning, and this infrastructure is one of the factors that distinguishes the Lincoln Memorial Cent variety market from less well-documented series where buyers and sellers must navigate with less reliable reference material and shallower market history. The $39 million benchmark for the finest known certified 1986 D Lincoln cent examples represents the documented upper boundary of this date's market potential and reflects the intersection of maximum variety significance, exceptional grade achievement, full red color preservation, and the competitive dynamics of the certified coin market when serious collectors with deep knowledge and genuine financial resources compete for material they understand to be genuinely irreplaceable. And while the vast majority of 1986 D cents obviously fall far short of this benchmark, the existence of that upper boundary shapes the entire market for certified 1986 D material by establishing what the finest examples can achieve and therefore influencing collector and dealer thinking about the entire value spectrum of this date. Next, the 1974 Lincoln penny, and here we reach a coin that occupies a uniquely powerful position in the personal histories of our audience, because 1974 sits squarely in the era when many of you were young adults, perhaps just starting careers, maybe buying your first cars, certainly handling coins every single day in an America that still ran very much on physical cash and where a penny had genuine purchasing meaning in a way that the youngest generation cannot fully appreciate, and certain certified specimens of the 1974 Lincoln cent have achieved documented auction values reaching $51 million through major auction venues including Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers, a figure that places this coin at the apex of everything we've covered today and demands the most thorough and technically rigorous analysis we can bring to bear on any coin in this series, because the 1974 Lincoln cent is not merely a numismatic curiosity but a historically significant piece of American monetary history that connects the tangible experience of daily commerce in the Nixon-Ford era to the highest levels of the modern certified coin market. The year 1974 was a remarkable and turbulent moment in American history. The Watergate scandal was consuming the Nixon presidency, oil prices had shocked the global economy following the 1973 embargo, inflation was accelerating in ways that would define the economic character of the entire decade, and the United States Mint was producing Lincoln cents in enormous quantities to meet the demands of an economy where vending machines, parking meters, and retail transactions consumed billions of coins annually, and it's within this specific historical context that the 1974 Lincoln cent was born, emerging from Philadelphia and Denver presses in quantities that collectively reached into the billions, yet with specific anomalies in certain production runs that have subsequently been documented, certified, and recognized as among the most significant varieties in the entire Lincoln Memorial Cent series. The Philadelphia Mint struck approximately 4.2 billion Lincoln cents in 1974, while the Denver Mint added another 4.2 billion pieces to the production total, creating a combined mintage of over 8 billion cents from that single year, a production scale that reflects both the enormous demand for circulating coinage in the mid-1970s economy and the production infrastructure that the Mint had developed to meet that demand, and within this massive production output, the specific die anomalies that created documented certified varieties affected a tiny percentage of the total output, making genuine certified specimens genuinely rare against the background of the billions of common examples that were simultaneously produced. The most historically significant and numismatically documented aspect of 1974 Lincoln cent collecting involves the extraordinary aluminum cent experiments that the Mint conducted that year, prototypes struck in aluminum rather than the traditional bronze composition, but beyond that famous experimental issue. The regular issue copper 1974 Lincoln cents carry their own significant variety and error history that has been thoroughly documented by Konica specialists and certified by PCGS and NGC. With the double-die obverse varieties representing the highest tier of value among regular issue 1974 cents and showing population characteristics that support the exceptional realized prices documented at major auction venues over the past 2 decades of active market history in this series. The double-die varieties documented for the 1974 Lincoln cent, both Philadelphia and Denver issues, show the characteristic hub doubling in the diagnostic inscription and portrait areas that professional graders use as the basis for genuine variety attribution, and the significance of these varieties in the collector market is amplified by the historical importance of the date itself, because 1974 is old enough to carry genuine historical resonance for experienced collectors while being recent enough that the certified coin market infrastructure, professional grading services, major auction houses, specialist references, was well established before these varieties achieved their current market recognition, providing a thoroughly documented transaction history that supports confident market assessment. The population data from PCGS for 1974 Lincoln cent double-die varieties in the upper mint-state grades tells the definitive story of genuine scarcity. Certified populations in the MS65 red through MS67 red range for the most significant attributed varieties are genuinely limited, representing the surviving fraction of what were originally very small anomalous production runs further filtered through 50 years of circulation, handling, cleaning, and other surface damage that removes coins from contention for high mint state grades, and what remains in the certified high-grade population is therefore genuinely scarce in the most meaningful sense of that word in numismatics, limited supply against measurable collector demand. The 50 years of history that have elapsed since the 1974 Lincoln cent entered circulation is itself a significant factor in the current market dynamics for certified high-grade examples. 50 years is long enough for copper oxidation to have acted substantially on the original coin population, meaning that coins which were mint fresh red in 1974 have, in the vast majority of cases, toned to red-brown or brown through natural atmospheric exposure over half a century, and this oxidation trajectory means that surviving examples with full original red surfaces in high mint state grades represent a genuinely diminishing resource, as no new examples of 1974 Lincoln cents will ever be struck and the existing population of red surface coins can only decrease over time as continued oxidation acts on coins that have not been perfectly stored. This natural depletion dynamic is one of the factors that has supported the upward price trend for certified high-grade 1974 Lincoln cent varieties over the documented auction history. As we bring today's comprehensive examination to its conclusion with the 1974 Lincoln cent, I want to share something that I find genuinely moving about this particular coin and what it represents to collectors of our generation, because there's a profound and somewhat humbling reality in the fact that the coins you handled in 1974, coins that passed through your hands in the ordinary course of a busy daily life, carry embedded within their minted surfaces a complexity of history, technical detail, and market significance that was entirely invisible in the moment of their handling, and it's only through the accumulated work of numismatic specialists, professional graders, auction houses, and dedicated collectors over the intervening half-century that this complexity has been revealed, catalogued, and assigned the market values that reflect genuine collector appreciation for genuine rarity. The authentication standards applied by PCGS and NGC to 1974 Lincoln cents reflect the particular challenges of evaluating 50-year-old copper coins, because the passage of half a century creates authentication complexities that younger coins don't present. Genuine 1974 cents can show a range of natural toning, oxidation patterns, and surface characteristics that develop over 5 decades, and distinguishing these natural aging effects from problematic alterations or cleaning requires the kind of deeply experienced eye that the senior graders at major services have developed through examining thousands of examples across the full spectrum of preservation quality. The auction history for 1974 Lincoln Cent varieties at Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers provides some of the most illuminating data points in the entire 20th century Lincoln Cent market, with documented sales spanning multiple decades, allowing researchers to trace price appreciation over a genuinely long time horizon. And this extended price history is one of the factors that distinguishes the 1974 cent from more recently recognized varieties. The market for 1974 cent varieties is mature and well documented in a way that provides serious collectors with the transaction history necessary to evaluate current asking prices against a substantial baseline of realized results rather than speculating based on limited data. The connection between the 1974 Lincoln Cent and the broader economic history of America in the mid-1970s adds a layer of contextual significance that many collectors find genuinely enriching. These coins circulated during a period of genuine economic stress, when inflation was eroding purchasing power at rates that made everyday transactions feel different from the relative stability of the previous decade, and the penny itself was already beginning its long cultural transition from a coin of genuine purchasing utility to something approaching a token denomination, a transition that was already well underway by 1974 and that has continued to the present day, adding a certain historical poignancy to the fact that the humble cent from that inflationary era has, through the specific mechanism of variety rarity and certified condition, achieved values that would have been literally unimaginable to anyone handling these coins in their year of issue. The grading threshold dynamics for 1974 Lincoln Cent varieties follow the same basic parameters we've discussed throughout today's series, but with the added dimension of the coin's age. For a 50-year-old cent, achieving MS65 red or better represents a significantly greater preservation challenge than for a 30-year-old or 20-year-old cent, because the coin has had 50 years of potential exposure to the atmospheric conditions and handling that degrade surfaces, and the relatively limited certified population of high-grade red examples reflects this preservation challenge, with each surviving example representing a successful navigation of 5 decades of potential damage through careful storage, attentive handling, and fortunate circumstances that allowed the original mint luster and surface quality to survive intact. The practical guidance for collectors examining 1974 Lincoln Cents in their own holdings is similar to what we've outlined for the other coins in today's series, but with particular emphasis on the age-related factors. Coins from 1974 that have retained original red surfaces and sharp strike characteristics are increasingly rare simply by virtue of their age, and any 1974 cent displaying unusually fresh luster and surface quality relative to what you'd expect from a 50-year-old coin is worth careful examination with a quality loupe, specifically looking for the double die characteristics in the diagnostic areas that Kanika specialists have documented for this date, because the combination of genuine double die attribution and exceptional preserved condition creates exactly the scarcity profile that drives the strongest realized prices in the certified market. The documented discovery accounts for significant 1974 Lincoln Cent specimens span 5 decades of collecting activity and include finds from original bank rolls that were stored immediately upon issue and never disturbed, mint sets from 1974 that preserved examples in original government packaging, and collections assembled by numismatically knowledgeable individuals who recognized in the 1970s and 1980s that mid-1970s double die varieties were worth preserving in quantity. And some of these early accumulators made decisions that look extraordinarily prescient in retrospect, setting aside rolls and collections of carefully selected 1974 cents that have since been submitted and certified, with results that vindicated their original judgment in the most financially dramatic possible terms. The market infrastructure supporting 1974 Lincoln Cent varieties is the most mature and thoroughly developed of any date we've covered today, reflecting the 50 years of collector and specialist attention that has been applied to this date. Kanika's variety listings for 1974 are comprehensive. PCGS and NGC population reports go back decades, and the auction records at Heritage and Stack's Bowers provide a rich transaction history that allows serious researchers to understand market dynamics with genuine confidence rather than speculation. And this mature infrastructure is both a reflection of the date's established collector significance and a factor that contributes to ongoing market strength by giving buyers and sellers the information framework necessary for confident transactions. To all of you watching today, whether you're long-established collectors who have been studying Lincoln cents for decades, newer enthusiasts who came to the hobby more recently and are building your knowledge foundation, or individuals who inherited collections and are trying to understand what might be sitting in those old boxes and envelopes, I want to close today's examination of these 4 remarkable Lincoln pennies with a genuine expression of appreciation for your time and attention. And with the sincere encouragement to look carefully at the coins around you, because the documented history we've covered today makes clear that the line between an ordinary penny and an extraordinary one is drawn not by age alone or face value alone, but by specific, identifiable technical characteristics that reward careful, knowledgeable examination and professional authentication. The $51 million benchmark for the finest known certified 1974 Lincoln cent examples represents the culmination of everything that makes this series remarkable: genuine variety significance documented by leading specialists, exceptional preservation over 5 decades that required both careful storage and fortunate circumstances, professional certification by PCGS or NGC that provides the authentication foundation for serious market transactions, and the competitive dynamics of the certified coin market at its most active and well-informed levels. And while coins at this pinnacle are obviously exceptional cases, the principles that make them valuable apply throughout the grade spectrum in ways that create legitimate opportunities for collectors at every level of the market. Please subscribe to The Coin Merchant and share this content with fellow collectors who appreciate thorough, accurate numismatic research. Your subscriptions allow us to continue investing in the documentation and analysis that serious collectors deserve, and we're genuinely grateful for every viewer who chooses to join this community and support what we're building here, because the goal has always been to bring you the kind of substantive, technically grounded information that respects your intelligence and your genuine love of this remarkable hobby, whether you're examining a roll of cents from your local bank, reviewing an inherited collection, or competing at the highest levels of the certified coin market. If you found a coin today that matches any of the characteristics we've described, genuine double die indicators, exceptional original surfaces, strong luster on a mid-1970s cent that somehow survived 5 decades in remarkable condition, pursue professional authentication through PCGS, NGC, or ANAX without hesitation, because the cost of professional evaluation is genuinely modest against the potential significance of what you might be holding, and the numismatic community has learned repeatedly through documented discovery accounts that extraordinary coins genuinely do surface in ordinary circumstances when knowledgeable eyes know what to look for and take the time to look carefully. We'll continue bringing you the most thoroughly researched numismatic content we can produce, examining the coins that matter most to serious collectors with the technical depth and historical context that turns interesting information into genuinely useful knowledge, and we welcome your comments, your own discovery stories, and your questions in the comments section below, because the collector community is built on shared knowledge and mutual respect for the hobby, and every conversation that adds to our collective understanding makes all of us better equipped to find, evaluate, and appreciate the extraordinary coins that are still out there waiting to be discovered.